Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Ruger-Morowski. I am the Associate Director of Partnerships at Parker Dewey. I'm very excited to talk to all of you today about Parker Dewey Micro-Internships and how you can use them for your own experiences and goals and whatever other challenges you may be facing as you launch your careers. A little bit of housekeeping as we get started. You'll notice we have a poll. Would love to see your feedback in there. And we also have the chat up. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free to use that chat. I'm usually pretty good about keeping up while we're going, but if I get behind, I will catch up at the end. Acknowledging first some of those challenges that you may all be facing as you are trying to launch your careers. If you are looking at the options in that poll and you're looking at the challenges on the screen and you're resonating with one, two, maybe all of them, take solace in the fact that you are not alone. Through resources like the Student Sentiment Survey, plugged in the chat again if you haven't already taken it, and our many conversations with students, these are things that come up repeatedly. Not having enough time for traditional opportunities or needing to make sure that's a good investment of your time before committing to one. Not knowing what you want to do, not being able to afford an unpaid internship, whatever the challenge is that resonates with you, again, these are things that we see consistently. So, I promise today's webinar is not a downer all about challenges. We're going to be talking about a solution, and that solution is micro-internships. The Parker Dewey platform is exclusively a micro-internship platform designed to make it easier for you to get paid professional experience in a way that fits in your schedule. So, what exactly are these micro-internships? They're short-term paid professional projects. So they're always focused on a specific deliverable as opposed to ongoing responsibilities. Ongoing responsibilities, those are the types of things you'd see maybe in an internship, definitely in a full-time role. Micro internship is where you have one thing that you're focusing on. There may be multiple components, but there's something you're going to complete. And once that deliverable is done, you're done with the micro internship. So, some outcomes of that focus is one, these are genuinely very short term. Most micro internships are somewhere between 10 and 40 hours in total. So, for those of you who have really busy schedules, this is something you can still fit into them, especially since the majority of these projects are remote. So you will still connect with the professional at the company. You get the chance to ask questions, you're expanding your network. But for most of these projects, whenever you're doing the actual work, wherever you're doing the actual work, is up to you as long as you're hitting the deadlines. Every single Parker Dewey Micro internship is also paid. That is a hallmark of our projects. We'll take a look at the platform here in a little bit, but you are able to see before you even apply, what the compensation associated with each project is. They are also always professional. So, our definition of that is these projects are going to revolve around or use skills that you all are learning in your degree programs. We'll delve a little bit more into eligibility in a second, but micro internships are exclusively available to students and recent graduates from US-based higher education institutions. So, they're going to be using skills and knowledge that are associated with those degree programs. Could be associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, master's, doctoral degrees. Could be projects related to marketing, finance, business, and many more industries. But you won't see things like paint my fence or walk my dog. Love a good dog walking job, but that's just not quite the focus of Parker Dewey Micro internships. And these can be posted at any time of year, and they tend to move quickly. So we'll talk about the importance of logging in regularly as well. So hopefully, when I was explaining what micro internships are, some of the benefits were clear, but just to make sure it is crystal, one is accessibility. For those of you who are saying, I maybe don't have a lot of time, I see there's some folks like that in the chat, or saying I can't afford to take unpaid opportunities. This is something that you can do. It's paid, it's flexible, it's remote. It's real experience. You do get it to add it to your resume. But regardless of what company you are working with, you are actually an independent contractor of Parker Dewey. So that means Parker Dewey is technically your employer. I see someone wondering, do you have to be a junior or a senior? No, you do not. Different companies are going to come to Parker Dewey with different goals. So some of the employers are going to have the goal of hiring someone for a traditional internship or a full-time role. The micro-internship may act as an audition of sorts. In those cases, they're probably going to be looking for juniors or seniors. But there are also employers who are using Parker Dewey with really straightforward projects who are trying to build a pipeline of awareness. So when they get to the part when they have those longer term internships, they've already been engaging with you since you were a first year student, and their company is top of mind for you. So in those cases, projects are going to be appropriate and maybe even intended for first or second year student. I see someone asking, is this also good for PhD students? Yes. Master's students, doctoral students, you all can use these as well. Um, I'm not sure I entirely understand the comment major barrier for internship. If you can give me more context, I will be happy to address. I see someone asking, can I complete an internship outside of my program? So I assume you mean something unrelated to your major as a way to earn experience or extra cash. This is a fantastic question. We have seen some students and recent graduates who kind of had that mindset. They were still open, but had the mindset of, I don't know if this is necessarily what I want to do for a career, but I know how to do this thing, or I know I have the skills where I could figure out how to do this thing for a micro internship. So let me apply to that project. Now, sometimes it does end up being just that. Okay, this was a good use of my skills. I made some extra money. This was great. Other times, we see that that leads to a student realizing, well, I thought this was just a project I was going to do, but actually, this is a really cool company. I could see myself working here and making a match with that company that leads to a longer term job. So, what I'll say is if you know straightforward, no way in the world are you ever going to work for that company, applying to their micro internship is probably not a good use of your time. Most of the partners or most of the employers using Parker Dewey have some sort of longer term goals. But I will say, even if you don't think you see yourself there, keep an open mind. If you have even a sliver of an open mind and you think you can do the project, go for it. Um, oh, Diana is saying, yes, you need to be a junior or senior to get some internships. Very true. So this is a way to start building your experience before a lot of those traditional internships become available to you. All right. It's a good opportunity for students to explore. That's very salient to what we were just talking about. Keep an open mind. If you're not sure what you want to do, but you have skills that you can use for these different projects, use those skills, try different things. This is a way to test things out without a commitment. And again, you get paid, and the questions already kind of lended themselves to highlight that employers are often using these as a way to build a pipeline to something longer term. So it's not guaranteed, but if you do a great job on your micro internship, there may be something longer term waiting for you on the other end. Ooh, I see a great question. What are some ways to make your resume stand out to be accepted to do a micro internship? So I'll answer that question first. The first thing you can do is attach it to your profile. We're going to talk about profile best practices and kind of do a tour of how you set up your profile. But one of the biggest things employers do look for is, did this student take the time to upload a resume? So I know that's a very basic starter response, but first, have one and attach it to your profile. It really does make a difference. As far as other details, there are some really good rules of thumb that are standard across all resumes. Make sure you're using consistent formatting, check for errors, typos, those types of things. But as far as nuanced things to highlight relevant to your career goals, your best friend is going to be your career center. They're familiar with your program. They're familiar with the types of employers that tend to be interested or hire from your program. So they're going to be able to give the best advice for how to organize, what to highlight. So that's my top advice for resumes. Have one. Make sure it's uploaded to your profile, but do those things only after having had Career Center or your Career Services Center review it. Red flags, I think I kind of already answered that. Typos, inconsistencies with your profile. I've done some selecting of micro internships myself, and one of the things that always gives me pause, if not outright leads to me hiding that candidate, is if I'm looking at their Parker Dewey profile and it says that they are graduating from this school in May of 2025, and then I'm looking at their resume and it says they've already graduated. Now, nothing wrong in your graduation date changing, but you do want to make sure that your profile reflects an attention to detail. So, proofreading, making sure it's up to date and consistent with the information on your profile. As promised, who can complete these micro internships? Is it worth you hanging out for the rest of the webinar? You do need to be 18 or older. For those of you who are under 18, thank you so much for joining us this far, and we look forward to seeing you on your birthday, as long as it's the one where you're turning 18. But that is a hard and fast rule. This is also open to students or recent graduates. I often get questions, is there a cutoff for recent graduates? And there is no official cutoff, but what we like you to consider is, would you still consider yourself a career launcher? Someone who is trying to figure out the next step in your career. So for example, if you're working full-time, you love your full-time job, and you're just looking for a side hustle to make a little bit of extra money, Parker Dewey is not for you. There are other platforms for that, and more power to you. If you've graduated and maybe you haven't landed that full-time job yet, or you're working a full-time job, but you've already realized, oh, this is not somewhere I'm going to be long term. I'm trying to make a shift. I need something different. That would be considered a career launcher, so you're welcome to use the platform. International students. I also often get a lot of questions from international students. Now, you do need work authorization to do a micro internship, and depending on your institution, excuse me, the process for work authorization may look different from one school to another. Some schools have really strict rules about when things need to be registered and the minimum number of credits. Others might be a little bit more flexible in a way that works for micro internships. So, if you are an international student, your first step is to connect with whatever office supports international students at your school. Take them this information. You're going to get the recording and slides afterwards, and ask, if I were to be selected for a micro internship, what would be the requirements or the process at our institution? So you know that going in, and you make sure you're only applying to projects that would meet that criteria. Undocumented students, another population that often struggles or faces challenges to find opportunities and no fault of their own. You can also do micro internships because micro interns are undocumented or independent contractors. Independent contractors of Parker Dewey. That means that this is open to undocumented students as long as you have a valid ITIN number. So we've covered what micro internships are and who can do them. Now let's talk about the how. Step by step, setting up your profile, applying, and all that good stuff. Before we jump into the actual platform, just a overview / reminder of who and what Parker Dewey is in all of this. Parker Dewey is the platform. The micro internship opportunities you will find on our platform are exclusively on our platform. We are also the employer of record. When you get paid, that pay is going to come from Parker Dewey. You can work with a variety of different companies doing micro internships. You'll see the opportunities. Some are big companies, some are small companies, some are international, some are very local mom and pop shops. But regardless of which ones you work with, Parker Dewey is the employer of record. We're also the folks that you will put on your resume when you list this experience. And we are also your resource. So if something is going on during your micro internship and you're not sure how to handle it, maybe you feel like the scope is different from what was described. Maybe something in your life has changed and you no longer have the bandwidth to complete the project. Maybe you just feel like you're in over your head and don't have the grasp on it that you thought you were going to. Whatever is going on, reach out to us. We're also going to send you some emails checking in. We want to help you navigate it and have a good experience, and most importantly, make a positive professional impression. So with that, let's talk about your Parker Dewey profile and how to get started. Now, if you do not already have a Parker Dewey profile, no better day than today, and I say that every day, to make one. So there's a link in the chat that's going to take you right here. If you don't have one yet, hit start, or if you do have one, this is a great time to log in. So what I'm going to do now is first walk through some of the steps that are required. Just the base things you need before you can start looking at opportunities. And then we're going to backtrack and we're going to talk about those things that aren't required but can really make a difference in whether or not you get selected. So, starting with the required things, we've got the basics, your name. We need an email address to let you know if you've been selected. You also are required to put in under this field called current and permanent address. So, I want to give some context for what this is and why it exists. When we say current, we want to know where are you now? So, if you are attending school and you are physically there, that is going to be the city and state where your school is. Permanent is where do you spend your academic breaks? Summer, spring break, if y'all are lucky enough to get a fall break, whatever it may be. Now, I know some of you may be thinking, didn't this lady just tell us that these are mostly remote? Why do they care so much about my location? Since many of these companies are trying to use micro internships as a way to build a pipeline to something longer term, even though the micro internship is remote, that longer term opportunity might be in person. If you've been logging in recently, you've seen a few auditions where the project is remote. As long as you have Wi-Fi, you can do it from wherever you are in the country, but the job they're trying to lead to is in person. So this is helpful for companies if they want to know, is it realistic you could do a summer internship with us? Now, that stated, it is not relevant to every project. It does not automatically take you out of the running. It's just helpful enough information for companies to know, and that's why we require it. Please also note when we say address, it's not the best name. We don't want your street address. Please, no numbers in this field. Keep that confidential. We just want to know the city and state. And then we also have the work authorization. Please make sure you select the appropriate option. And then our next required section is going to be education. Now, again, Parker Dewey is exclusively available to students and recent graduates from US-based higher education institutions. We do have a few partner boot camps here and there, so you are able to know very easily if you are a partner boot camp is if you put in the name of your boot camp and it pops up. But any school, accredited institution, is going to already be in the system. So you'll put in your school, your major, clarify what type of degree you are earning, and then you'll notice that there's a little add education button down here. If you got your associate's degree somewhere and now you're getting your bachelor's, or maybe you got your associate's degree somewhere, got your bachelor's somewhere else, and now you're getting your master's, a third place. Maybe you have four educational institutions because now you're getting your doctorate. Add every single one of those institutions as long as you have graduated from or are currently attending. Now, if you took summer courses somewhere 3 years ago and you got 3 credits and you haven't gone back since, don't add that educational institution. Again, this is only if you've graduated from a school or are currently attending there. But the reason why you want to add all qualifying education institutions is because companies have the ability to feature projects based on school. Oftentimes, they're featuring to local schools because they want to build that pipeline towards in-person opportunities. So if you have an affiliation with a school that a company is featuring to, we want to make sure you can see that project. Now, next up on the required list, we've got this demographic section. And to be clear, for every single question year, you have the ability to say, prefer not to disclose. But before you select that option, I want to make sure you're aware none of the information in this demographic section is included in what the employers see when they make micro intern selections. They're going to see a combination of the other information on your profile and your responses to questions. We're going to go over those here in a minute as well, but they are not going to see these other things. This is just for the Parker Dewey team because we want to make sure that we are creating an accessible and equitable platform, and this just allows us to know, are we doing what we set out to do? So, if we look at the preview and consider just the things we've talked about so far, it's just going to be your education, a graduation date, and that's pretty much it. It's not a lot for employers to go off of. So now we're going to do that piece where we backtrack and talk about those things that are not required but can really make a big difference in being selected. So this is also where I'm going to bring up a resource. Give me just a moment here. And this resource is going to be our professional communication tips for micro interns. This is a document I'm going to refer to a few times during this presentation, but the section I'm highlighting right now is a section that includes a little formula for a personal statement. So if we pop up into this profile section, you're going to see this option to add a personal statement. Now, if you've applied for grad school or things like that, this is not a personal statement like that. It's not an essay. In fact, you are limited to 255 characters, but this is just a short opportunity for you to share a little bit about who you are and your goals. If you are struggling with what to put in that section, that's where this formula and the resource I shared might be helpful for you. So you might want to think of one or two adjectives that are both relevant to you or genuinely true of you and relevant to the types of opportunities you'd like to apply for. Also, want to think about, based on the projects you're interested in, what are some skills you might want to highlight? Are you someone who has a certificate in data analytics? If you're looking for data analysis projects, that might be a good thing to emphasize. If you have been published in any way and you're looking to do projects writing blog posts or content, maybe you emphasize that you've been published and in what type of publication. And then your goal on Parker Dewey. Are you looking to explore? Are you looking to get your foot in the door in a specific industry? And what is it that you're trying to accomplish by doing these projects? So here we have examples of that formula in action. And this person highlighted that they're ambitious and tech savvy, emphasized their writing skills. They're just trying to build some real world experience. This person emphasized that they're analytical yeah, that's the word, analytical, organized, and proactive. They highlighted their certificate in data analytics, and they were looking to build awareness. What kind of things can I do with these skills in terms of a career? This person emphasized they're hardworking, that they have research skills, that they've got experience in marketing, and they had a slightly more specific goal. So just a few examples of that formula in action. I see that a number of you have also noticed that we have a poll open. Would like you to just reflect on which of those options, regardless of what industry you're applying for, probably not going to be a good pick. I see someone who asked, I'm graduating in May. Am I eligible to participate? Oh, yes, you are. By all means, it was covered, but no worries at all. This is open to current students and recent graduates as long as you are still trying to figure out the next phase of your career. And looking at the poll, looks like over half of you have completed it, and most of you are exactly right. Nice isn't really telling the employer anything unique or memorable about you. If you're not nice, and I'm sure all of you are just downright lovely, but if you weren't, you would fake it for the sake of professionalism. So it's not really giving them anything to make a decision based off of. So now that we've covered this personal statement, some other things on this page. One is, are you willing to relocate for a full-time offer? Now, if you are a first or second year student, that's clear in your profile. No employer is going to expect you to blow off school and then leave for a full-time job if you have your degree to finish. But this is considering when you do graduate. Would you be willing to move somewhere other than you currently are if you found a role that was for the right fit? Another piece that you can add in here that can help employers know whether it's likely you'd continue with their organization is zip codes that you might be interested in moving to after graduation. Now, I want to make it clear, this is not a contract. If you graduate and you don't move to any of those zip codes, that's okay. It's just trying to gauge interest. Where are some places that you could potentially see yourself? Another question down here, if you are an NCAA student athlete, sometimes companies will filter for athletes because you all know what it's like to work as part of a team. You're coachable. You have to have good time management to balance your classes and your athletic practices and schedules. So it just gives them a way to filter if they are looking for student athletes in particular. Something else you can do is add affiliations. Now, if you are part of an organization that has an affiliation in Parker Dewey, there's probably a notice on the page you created your account from telling you what affiliation to add. That might unlock additional projects specifically for students from that organization. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's probably not relevant to you. No need to worry. But there are a few that are a little bit more ubiquitous. If you are a veteran, or a student athlete, or a part of your school's honors program, you can also add those affiliations to your profile. Sometimes companies will post projects exclusively for those affiliations. I see someone asking, I went to graduate school for a year, but I'm unable to continue at this time. So not currently a student. Would I be eligible? It really depends on what your future plans are in this case. And this is a really good question. If you eventually intend to continue that degree and complete it, again, it's not a contract. Life happens. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. But if you have that intention, then you can still use the platform. If you know for sure, it's not in the cards for me to go back to school, this is probably not the ideal platform for you at this time. So I hope that's helpful. All right. So next section that is not required, but is going to really make a difference is this highlighted experience section. Now, I know some of you may be looking ahead, my eager beavers, and seeing that resume section, thinking, if I have to upload a resume, why do I have to add highlighted experience? I hear you. But I hope that this profile preview kind of helps answer that question. This is very similar to what the company will see when they are considering your application. And as you can see, they will see your highlighted experience section here, but they don't see what is in your resume unless they click on it. That's going to be over here as a document. So I encourage you to think of this highlighted experience section as kind of a teaser. List 1 to 3, maybe 5 if you've got them, experiences that most directly speak to the types of projects you would like to be doing, and use that as a way before they even have to click into anything else to demonstrate why they should pick you. Now, a comment I often get is, I'm coming to Parker Dewey because I don't have experience. What am I supposed to put in this section? So that's why I like to highlight this doesn't need to be jobs or internships. This could be class projects, extracurricular projects, volunteer projects, anything you've done that demonstrates your skills. Even if you're in your first or second year, you probably haven't done too many things directly related to your major, but I'm willing to bet that in your English course, you've written a persuasive essay. If you were interested in writing blog posts or anything where you have to convey something meaningful, detailing what you did in that essay and how you went about it can be helpful. All right, moving on to the next section. We've already emphasized uploading a resume is a big one. Make sure you do this step. But there are some other elements on this page. You can clarify what types of opportunities you are available for. So again, first and second year students, you're probably not ready for that full-time job yet, but make sure that you select that when you are a graduating senior. If you have somewhere where employers can go to see samples of your work, pop that in here. If you are in graphic design or an art student, for example, and you have a portfolio link, perfect example of where to share it. Maybe you're into coding and you have a GitHub. Whatever it may be, if it's in link form and demonstrates your skills, put it in here. Another one is adding a LinkedIn profile. I have sat with an employer who was trying to decide between two candidates. All else was equal. Really, the only difference was one had a LinkedIn link and the other didn't. And he chose the one that had a LinkedIn profile attached. He just felt that it really spoke to that student's sense of professionalism. So not only can it help you get selected, but it also is going to make life easier for you when you want to connect with your supervisor later or ask for a recommendation. Just a good practice to make one. It's free, super easy if you don't already have one, and to put your profile link in here. Now, this document section is not going to be relevant for everybody. For some folks, if you have the portfolio site or the GitHub or whatever it may be already, you may not feel the need to add anything into your document section. But if you have maybe 1 or 2 examples of your work but don't have it in an online format, this is a great way to share those examples. So if you are interested in writing projects, maybe you upload a writing sample. If you are interested in public relations, maybe you upload a press release sample. But I would highly recommend making sure that you name the file something that is going to make sense to the employer before you upload it. So if we go to this preview section here, you can see this is hard to read because I have not done a good job of naming my files. I uploaded something called Final Exam for Psych 231. An employer's not going to have any idea what that is, so they're not likely to click on it. So again, name things by writing sample, graphic design sample, social media accounts I manage, things like that. I see we've got a question in the chat pertaining to experience. How do you list experience that you have created for yourself? For example, if you make graphics, but you have never done it for a corporate entity, it's really going to depend on what capacity you've used those graphics for. So if you have used them, for example, as part of a club to promote an event you have coming up, or maybe you're in a band or something and you've created graphics to promote your band, you can title it. Let's just go ahead and do a live example here. And please feel free to put additional details in the chat. But you could say, band promotion, just as an example. So graphic design. And then what you want to do is make sure that there's never any confusion. We want to highlight, but we don't want to mislead. So in a case like that, I would clarify what type of an experience it is here. So band promotion, personal project, role, graphic design, and then the details, you could say, created promotional materials in the form of a postcard and a flyer and an XYZ to promote our band's upcoming gig. And then to really bring it home in that document section, you can upload a PDF file that shows all those different graphic design elements you did. All right. No, I also forgot to talk about adding a profile photo. Sorry, folks, I was remiss in not doing that. Very simple, head and shoulders, doesn't need to be fancy. Pick a background that's not too crazy busy or distracting. Just think about what you want to be doing. And if you are hiring for that role, if the energy you're putting into your photo matches it. So if you are looking to do PR type roles for, very friendly, sunshiny companies, probably don't put a picture with a big scowl. Just try to match the energy of where you want to see yourself. Oh, someone's asking, what if you used Forage for experiential learning? Can you list that on your profile? You certainly can, just like any other experience. Add in, you could say Forage simulation. You could say your role, simulate, or I'm not intimately familiar. I know they have a variety. So whatever it is, data analysis simulation related to, I'm not sure if they give you permission to name the companies they're doing simulations for or not. Refer to their resources. But however, they would encourage you to add it to your resume or your LinkedIn. You can certainly add it here as well. All right. We have had, I see the question, how about experiential learning or experimental learning section? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that question. So if you want to add additional context, um, then please do so and I'll try to answer. I'm still not quite following. But if there are any other questions about profiles, please feel free to put those in the chat. And we will be going over to the dashboard and talking about how to apply to opportunities next. Again, I can always backtrack. Please don't hesitate, Diana, to add a little bit more context since I'm not quite following it. Right. And you are also going to get these slides afterwards. So everything we just talked about is here in these slides as well. We have talked about your profile and these tips for success. We also have a Career Launcher tutorial. So if you're not a rewatch person and you're more of a resource person, you want to read through it, that link is in the chat as well. And again, you'll also get it in the slides. Now, at any time, you can go back and forth from the dashboard to your profile. So you can make changes at any point. If you missed what I did before, up here, you can go back to dashboard and you can go to your name and you can go back to profile. Now, the dashboard is where you are going to see the opportunities, and what you see is going to differ depending on your institution. Some of you may see a section called Featured Projects. Others may start with the All Open Micro-Internships. So the difference between these two sections, anything you see in this featured section means for one reason or another, based on something in your profile, these projects are available to you, but they're not available to everyone. Everything in the open to all section, those are open to all Parker Dewey users. So where you might want to take this into consideration is if you see a featured section, you might want to consider a little extra the opportunities in that section because you're not competing with as many students for those opportunities. So your chances of being selected are even greater. So, if you decide based on a project title that you are interested, you can hit the drop down to learn more about that opportunity. You'll see a description of the project, you'll see when they'd like it to kick off, when they'd like it to complete, and the estimated number of hours. Now, this is estimated because micro interns don't need to formally track their time. Y'all are paid based on completion of the project. But when companies are posting, we do ask them to estimate. That way we can review it and make sure that whatever they're asking for could reasonably be completed in that amount of time and to make sure that the compensation is appropriate. So you can see here before you even apply what you would earn if you were selected for and complete this micro internship. Now, most of our projects are remote, but as you may have noticed, there are some projects, I know I saw one here, that this one right here may have an on-site element. Usually that's, if there's something for social media and maybe you're filming something, well, you can't film something you're not physically near. So that's where those tend to come into play. But you'll know before you even click in, is this something fully remote or does it have an on-site component? Now, if you read the details of the project and you decide you're interested, you can hit apply. And the first question is always going to be, why do you think we should select you? Some companies will leave that as their only question. Others will decide to ask additional questions, and you'll be able to see what those are here. This company transparently decided to ask a few more questions than we typically see. Let me see if I can find another example here that's a little bit more on par with what we tend to see. So this one, let's see. This is a design project. I know we had some folks talking about design before. This is a little bit more typical. Two questions here. So this one, why do you think we should select you? Like I said, this is in every application. So we're going to talk about some resources to help you answer this question really well. And this is where I'm going to go back to a resource for these short answer application questions. Um, I see some exchange in the chat. Someone's asking about exponential/fast-paced skill building. It sounds like that might be something specific to Forage. If it's something that platform clarifies to you that you are able to share as a resumeable experience, you are welcome to put it on Parker Dewey. I apologize for not having more intimate knowledge about Forage beyond that. All right, so I'm going to share a resource here, and it is tips for answering those questions. So these are going to hold true for that question, why should we select you? And really any other question after that. So the first thing you want to do is look for the question under the question. And I know this kind of sounds like a riddle that a troll might say to Billy Goats trying to cross the bridge, but what I mean by this is, what do they actually want to know? So that first question, why should we select you? It's the same question for every micro internship you apply for. But depending on what the micro internship is, your answer should be different because it's a different project. It might be a different set of skills that you're trying to highlight. Now, if you're applying to a bunch of projects that are very similar, there's probably going to be some substantial overlap, but you want to make sure you're really taking the scope of what you're applying for in mind. Use the description to your advantage. Read carefully. If they say they're looking for someone who knows how to use this type of application, and you have that type and you use that type of application, emphasize that in your answer. It's going to help you stand out. And perhaps the most important one, in my opinion, is show, don't tell. There's something called the STAR method, which stands for situation, task, action, and result. And I'm putting that in the chat. And basically, whenever you're answering a question, if you can use the STAR method to tell a little story, a situation you encountered, the task you took on, the action you took to address that task, and the result, it's going to help you stick in the person's mind a little bit better. So we're going to give an example here in just a moment. Another is to mirror the tone. If they're using very traditional professional language, match the energy. If the post says, I need someone to create a bussin' TikTok video, no cap, all facts, no printer. I know it was really bad, but I tried. Then you match that energy if it makes sense to you and is authentic to you. Keep it short. Now, I know some of you may be thinking, well, she just said to tell a story, but keep it short. This is how we're going to go into an example. And try to go beyond a yes or no. If, for example, a project asks, are you familiar with using Canva? Or are you familiar with Photoshop or something like that? If you haven't used that platform specifically and you just say no, your chances of getting that project are pretty low. But if you've used something similar, maybe you haven't used Canva, but you've used another online design platform that you know has a lot of similarities, or maybe you know how to use Photoshop, you could say, while I haven't used Canva, I have done this. A lot of the skills are transferable. And then if you use that STAR method to tell a story about a time you use those skills, much better chances. So, on that note, we have two examples here of answering the same question for a social media project. The first person says, "You should select me because I've experienced doing this kind of stuff." Technically, not a bad answer. Having experience is a good reason to select someone, but let's do a little imaginary conversation between colleagues. So, imagine I'm the employer that's reviewing candidates. Hey, colleague B, I need to pick someone for that micro internship. Any thoughts on who we should pick? Colleague B, what if we pick the person who's done this kind of stuff before? Colleague A, that's kind of all of them. Colleague B, which one are you talking about? And C. Now let's look at this response. Technically, same reason. You should pick me because I've done these kind of things before. But then they used that STAR method. They gave a situation. As the social media chair for my sorority, a task they were assigned. I was in charge of the social media for our event. Then they described their action. I planned a series of posts and then a result. One of them got great engagement and it directly contributed to increased attendance. Now, when you look at this, it is only one, two, three, four sentences. Most of these questions can be answered effectively in 2 to 4 sentences, but it tells a little story that is going to help the employer remember this candidate. So let's replay that scene, but with this answer. Colleague A, hey, colleague B, who do you think we should pick for this micro internship? I've got to select someone today. Colleague B, oh, what about the one who made those videos for her Night in Pink fundraiser? Pause. Let's also imagine that this candidate made a PDF with the links to the social media accounts so the company could see them. Back to scene. Colleague A, oh, I know exactly who you're talking about. I really like those videos. Colleague B, I know, me too. Let's pick them. So that's just an example of how a short little example can really help you stand out. So going back to the too many tabs I have open, those are some tips again that you can apply to just about any questions being asked. I see another question. Does putting part-time work experience in the experience section help with getting micro internships? It certainly can, but there's a little bit of a caveat, mostly if it's relevant to the types of projects you want to be doing. In most things, there's going to be at least some element of it that is relevant. So if you are, making ice cream cones at the Tasty Freeze, the act of making the ice cream cones is probably not going to be directly relevant to most micro internships. But if you want to apply for a micro internship that involves writing to a specific perspective and being able to understand people from that demographic, then maybe highlighting that you interacted with that demographic regularly with positive results and smiles at that job can be something that can help them really understand how that experience could be beneficial to them in their project. I see another question about experience. Oh, a personal portfolio. If you have not been a part of groups on campus, but you're using these things in your free time, then yes, you can label that as personal graphic design projects, or if you have one in particular that you want to emphasize, poster design, and then you can say personal projects in parentheses, but yes, you could add those as well. And then there are going to be a few yes or no questions. The employers do not see the responses to these questions. It's just good for us at Parker Dewey to know because a lot of times students are willing to engage with projects at companies that you didn't really know about before. And that makes sense. These are really low commitment. It's not too important for you to be deeply knowledgeable about the company yet. And that just allows us to tell the company, hey, this is a great way to get in front of new talent you may not have reached before. Now, once you submit your application, you're going to see it in the Apply tab. If it's under Active, that means you are still being considered. If it is under Passed, that's how you know that you are not selected for that particular opportunity, so you don't have to wonder about your status. When you get selected, you will be notified via email, and you are also going to get the contact information for the professional. Now, I do see we have a raised hand. For the sake of time, I will do raised hands at the end if you want to ask your questions out loud. Until then, please feel free to use the chat for during the rest of the webinar. All right, so going back to our slides to highlight some of those resources you will get after you are selected. Before I do that, I do want to give y'all some insights into the employer view of things, so you kind of have an idea of what they're seeing. When they get your application, they'll be able to click on your name and they're going to see a combination of the information from your profile and your response to those application questions. Now, as you can see up in the top right, for each profile, once they've clicked into it, there's kind of two options for what they could do with this person. They could send them a message. Sometimes employers will do that if they have a follow-up question about your application. Or maybe they'll schedule a brief Zoom interview, especially if the project they want you to do involves being, personable and communicative. They want to make sure that's the case. But a lot of times, they're going to go directly to making their selection based off just those two things, your profile and your application responses. And that is why it is so important to make sure that both of those things are thoughtful, they're complete, and they're free from errors. No grammar mistakes, no typos. If you came here from this morning's email, it is really true. The decisions are in the details. Little things like not uploading a resume or having a typo in that resume or a grammatical error, if all other things are equal, those can make a difference. So, your big takeaway from today's presentation is please make sure that both your profile and your responses are thoughtful, complete, and free from errors because the details really do make a difference. Now, if you are concerned about, accidentally making a detail mistake, because we've all been there. I can look at something 3 times and go, that's great. And then the minute I send it, I realize there was a typo in it. Don't hesitate to have a Google Doc open on the side. Write out your response. Use spell check in the Google Doc, and then copy and paste that into your application. Use the tools available to you. You don't need to rely solely on yourself. That stated, don't use AI to apply. AI can be a really great tool, but I've seen most students aren't super great at using it and they end up leaving part of the prompt in your response. So just best practice to answer them authentically and yourself. Technically, if you're using AI well enough that we can't tell you're using AI, more power to you, but I've seen that it's typically not the case. We also have an AI performance policy. So if we find out you're using AI and you're not using it well enough for us to not notice, we do reserve the right to deactivate your account, especially if you're using it on a project. These companies are engaging you because they want to see your work, not ChatGPT's work. Now, there are some projects some of you may have noticed that are focused on AI. So not that you're using AI to do the project, you could be, but that you are doing research related to AI or helping the company explore how AI might be able to support those efforts. So just a quick overview of that. Navigating the platform. We've already talked about this a little bit, where you'll find the opportunities, what's in the applied and selected tab. Now, after you've completed your project, it's going to bump over to this section. Afterwards, the employer has the ability to leave you feedback. This is where you'll find that. And if they do message you about your application, this is where you'll find those messages. You'll also see a friendly reminder that Parker Dewey is the employer of record for every micro internship through our platform. What does that mean? It means when you get paid, you're going to get paid by Parker Dewey. So that means only Parker Dewey needs your payroll information. If any company ever says, hey, I want to select you, I just need your social security number, you say, no, 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 you don't. Only Parker Dewey needs that. Let us know, and we're going to address. Now, we're keeping an eye on these projects. We verify everything before it's posted or we legitimize it, but there are bad actors out there, so we want to make sure, in addition to the steps that we are taking, that you are also equipped with knowledge to help protect yourself as well. All right. So you may also be wondering, well, once I get selected for a micro internship, What happens next? I already shared you'll get the contact information for the professional of the company, and you're also going to get some resources, particularly in the form of our success checklist. I'm going to go over that next, but a reminder too that you have resources as you're doing this micro internship. Your primary resource is going to be that professional at the company. The first step is to connect with them, to ask questions, to get context, to make sure you have what you need to be successful. If you run into hiccups along the way, reach out to that person. You're going to see resources for how to communicate if that's something that you're anxious about. But if you are asking them a well thought out, intelligent question that you've put effort into trying to answer yourself, that's not a bad thing. Questions can be a great thing. And question to ask them when you have that initial meeting is also, is anything I'm working with confidential? Is it okay if I share, that I'm doing this project with faculty or mentors? Now, typically, micro internships aren't involving anything confidential, but by working on our platform, you do agree to something called a non-disclosure agreement. That's just saying if a company does decide to have you working on or looking at something confidential, that you're not going to go blab it to everybody. So just ask when you get started, is there anything that I shouldn't be sharing? And is it okay if I ask faculty or mentors for input or feedback on what I'm doing? Most of the time, the answer is going to be yes. And if it is, use those resources. Now, if there's something going on where you feel like you can't get through to the supervisor, or your life circumstances have changed, or there's just any challenge at all and you're not sure how to handle it, we can help you navigate anything as long as you communicate with us. The only thing we can't help you with is if you just disappear from the project and we don't know what's going on. So please reach out to us if there's anything happening that you're not supposed to handle or that you're not feeling equipped to handle. And a reminder that again, the pay will come from Parker Dewey. So don't ask the professional at the company. They're not going to know the answers if you have a question about pay. You'll get the forms to be paid from us. Pay is processed once a month. So, for example, if you completed a project today, hello everyone watching in the future, today is February 19th, that pay is likely going to get processed at the end of this month, give or take a couple of days. And then, assuming that you have filled out that bank paperwork, you'll see the pay within the first couple of days of the month. Um, so, as promised, that resource, the micro internship success checklist. Everyone gets this when they get selected. It's got a guide for how to have that first exchange with the professional at the company. So you can do so with confidence and professionally. It has the details about how you'll get the forms to get paid. A reminder of the terms of service, because we know how it is. You agree to them when you create an account. Who knows if you read them or not? You should always try to read them, but we know reality. So you can just review the Parker Dewey ones if you have any questions, resources to set yourself up for success. Here's those templates I was referring to. Some projects are really straightforward. After that kickoff call, it might just be a few emails back and forth. If it's a little more complex, maybe you'll have a couple of check-in meetings with the professional. These agendas and the templates, give you critical thinking points. What have I done so far? What questions do I have at this point? And it helps you think about what's needed going forward so you can take that meeting or the email with the professional as an opportunity to make sure everyone's expectations are aligned. Very similarly, after you complete the project, you're going to get our post-micro internship checklist. There's going to be a survey. We'd love for you to share your thoughts on the experience and what, if any, impact it had on how you feel about your career plans going forward. It reminds you to review any feedback the employer may have left. We give you this lovely guide for how to add the experience to your resume or to LinkedIn, how you can add it if you've only done one micro internship or if you end up doing multiple. A friendly reminder again, regardless of what company you work with, this is going to go on your resume and in LinkedIn as an independent contractor of Parker Dewey or an independent consultant. Either one of those is just fine, but Parker Dewey is the employer of record. Now, if you ask the company, hey, can I include the company name in my resume and LinkedIn? And they say yes, then here in the description is where you will list the company name. Most of the time, they're going to say yes, but if you're working with a smaller company that doesn't have name recognition, it might be to your benefit to describe the company instead of naming them anyway. So you'll get all those resources. And then We're coming full circle back to those students that we saw at the beginning of the webinar who are talking about their challenges to launch their careers and not having enough time, not knowing what they wanted to do, not being able to afford unpaid opportunities, to these quotes at the end after they engaged in micro internships and how it helped them address those challenges. So if you are inspired by hearing about other students' experiences, then please check out our student success stories. These are students from all different types of institutions, majors, parts of the country. You may have noticed our survey reminder popped up, so I'll throw that in the chat again. Because again, we'd love you to take our survey if you haven't already. It's only open for a short time through March 6th, and we are going to do a drawing. Some of you who take the survey will get a gift card. Got a little off track there, but students, this is ultimately designed to help you address those challenges. So if you haven't already, next steps that we hope you take after today's webinar, create that profile. If you already have one, review the profile. Make sure it is updated. Make sure it is complete. Make sure it is free from errors. Log in regularly. Most projects kick off within a week or less of being posted. They do not hang around long. So if you want to see the full breadth of opportunities available to you, make sure you're checking in on a regular basis. When you do see something that interests you, do not sit on it. Be ready to apply right away. That's why it's so important to have your profile ready. And just like anything else, the more you apply to micro internships, the better you're going to get at answering the questions and the more quickly you're going to be able to do it. It's kind of like a muscle. And make sure that you do continue to apply. When we look at the numbers and the data, we see that students who have applied to 5 or more projects are significantly more likely to be selected than those who have applied to less than 5. So if you've applied to 1, 2, maybe even 3 or 4, and you haven't been picked yet, do not despair. It's always worth a review of your profile, and you're welcome to come to our office hours to make sure there's not an issue, but it may just be that a little bit more persistence is needed. We also have a Career Launcher LinkedIn page that has lots of resources and fun stuff. So if you want to be kept up to date, if there's a project that's hiring a large number of micro interns, sometimes we'll post those things there. And if you're looking at the platform regularly and you're not seeing opportunities that align with your interests, we also do a webinar focused on how you can reach out to contacts at companies of interest to create your own opportunities based on your interests. So if that is something you'd like to learn more about, we're doing the next session of that webinar on March 26th, but you don't need to wait. You can always see the recording and slides from the last session whenever it's convenient for you. So with that, folks, I know we've got just a few minutes left for questions. Just want to say thank you so much for your time today and for joining me. I hope this was helpful, and we are looking forward to hopefully writing some success stories about some of you in the very near future.